Okay, as far as the Anuni, which I don't think I'd probably heard of it, but I would say the Anunnaki stuff, the Sumerian stuff, never really stuck, especially how much people are, like, loving Sitchin. Well, not that many people actually take Sitchin seriously at this point. Well, that's not true, but I don't know. I never liked a lot of that stuff. I don't really respect it when people do like that stuff a lot, because, okay, maybe someone just doesn't know, but Sitchin published his works through Disinfo Incorporated. Like, come on. And a lot of people don't know that. For me, I was always more inclined to listen to the detractors, because, the Lost Book of Enki, and it's like this, epical style text filled with sci-fi concepts, and I would make bad fun of it. I told a couple people, I said, it sounds like a fourth grader, picked up some of these mythological texts and made a text out of it, made their own, like, fan fiction, and what they had hoped to use different cues to, imply that that it's something similar or something, like, it's so farcical. And I think the worst part is that I think that there are some truths in it, but the style of it's so disingenuous, I'm not willing to read it. In fact, one person that was pushing it really hard on me, I've decided, yeah, you're a spook, fuck you, because a lot of these things are intended to drive you insane. Like, if you read the Lost Book of Enki, it will change your thought process. It's like, Marx is probably the ultimate, example of this, because Marx's work, like, the way he uses terminology differently, is designed, I believe, to create a predictable psychotic break, and then it's like you're in his world, and so, I'm kind of a fan of communism in a sense, but I think it's, most people want some sort of communism, socialism, but I think communism would be great. I say, if communism is to happen in the modern day, first you have to kill Marx. Because of this thing, it's very, in my mind, disingenuous. But a lot of texts like this seem to perhaps even have spells on them that are meant to dramatically alter the consciousness of the person reading them. And I think Book of Enki is one of them. So, but because, Ancient Aliens, the show, has such a presence in people's mind when it comes to this topic, and in my mind, even though I didn't watch much of it, I didn't say to myself, what if from that show, right? Which of course is just to do soft disclosure, but also bake in all of this plausible deniability of, oh, you think Sitchin was onto something, ha ha ha, it was published by Disinfo Incorporated, ha ha ha, and to which they would be right, it's just a closed loop of Freemasonic nonsense. Anyways, however, the reason why I used to saying this, that some of them were underworlders and perhaps some of them not, why that's so interesting to me is because, I have a friend, Katesh, and she's like a really great psychic. She does quantum Akashic record readings, but she doesn't go to the, hall of Akashic records that everyone can see. She goes to, like, the way she describes it, there's like this, delta of energies, and it's some layer of the astral plane, and she goes there. So basically the thing the astral plane is feeding off of, she's there learning. And honestly, I say more power to her, because I've had some bad experiences on the Akashic records. I've actually ended up fighting things at the Akashic records. Like being antagonized there. The librarians really don't like me there. The guards always come out when I'm there. I don't know, you know, but yeah, so it's not great. Anyways, she said that when the Anunnaki at one point just meant basically the way we would say aliens. It's like, you know, things from not here coming down. And it was funny in the comments of that. Well, she said that in the comments of one of her posts to me and some other people. And someone else said that her spirit guides told her that she was Anunnaki in a previous lifetime. And I've had the same experience, but I don't remember, you know, being like a white cone-headed dude, you know? So, you know, and in fact, I don't remember that at all. I especially if we talk about Inner Christos, even, which is kind of the going the opposite way, but they also obsess over quote unquote the Anunnaki. I just don't remember a lot of the stuff. I may just not have been here. I don't know, or you know, I remember some stuff, but you know what I remember a lot though. I remember dark elves. I remember the like Aldebaran black like black elves or dark gray elves, um like dark silver looking guys. um yeah, anyways, the other thing is if Anunnaki just means aliens, basically, if that's sort of what the texts even are sort of conveying to some extent. You know, I don't know a ton about it. I get that Anunnaki is supposed to mean like the gods, but I mean aliens, even the more mundane aliens are probably the gods compared to, you know, primitive earthlings. Um, you know, and we've gone into a downgrading here, but I don't know how much better it was in the past. According to the Vedic scriptures, you know, X amount of time ago, humanity was like super science and, you know, or super magic rather, and like uh, basically on par with any aliens practically. Um, so but yeah, it just follows the narrative of like aliens having underground and underwater bases, dumbs. Like the whole thing of dumbs is hilarious because, and I mean, I think dumbs are a real thing and a recent thing. Unless, I mean, yeah, I don't think we're using subterraneans to mine out massive facilities, but underground, yeah, different beings living underground is just an idea that feels as old as human memory, which admittedly isn't that long, but yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of my point. Of course, you know, this is where we get into conspiracy theories, where it's like very questionable what may or may not be correct. Um, you know, like the Inner Earth Society. Is Inner Earth populated by a Garthan, like beautiful elves? Is it populated by, you know, basically reptoid goblins? Is it a mix of a lot of these things? Um, I heard this from Robert Sepper, so, you know, whatever. But basically, this idea of the hollow or honeycombed Earth, which I saw visions of the whole honeycombed Earth thing. Still, of course, Robert Sepper is going to bat for like basically the neo-Nazis. Yeah, I stopped watching his stuff because I just can't stand his way of communicating things. I get that a lot of people have a desire to believe certain things, but they need kind of a lot. They have a desire to think about certain things, to play with ideas, but perhaps they don't have the intelligence, and more than that, they can't. They need someone to be like say something in a really convincing way, or you know, put a lot of sort of craft into the way they say it. I don't know. I don't like that, so I stopped watching him. I only watched a few of his videos, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, if a figure has controversy, they're already almost too popular to take seriously. I mean, because like a cult, it's secret. It's not something many people will know. Yeah. But I think there's a point to it where there's a lot of false teachers right now, but the false teachers are actually helping. They're helping to advance people into things that would just be totally bizarre to them otherwise. You know, there's people out there that won't shut up about inner Earth or some other thing, and you know, maybe it's completely wrong. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure that there's something going on beneath probably every major city, and yeah, I mean, perhaps the catacombs of France go straight to hell. I would think so, right? Probably New York City as well. Um, Probably most cities have something like this. It would be weird if they didn't, almost, you know. Um, I've heard some things from some schizophrenic people about Ljubljana, where I live, but I don't know. Maybe here. Um, you know, I don't know. Like I said, maybe it could be completely wrong. Um, but it would be super weird though, because it's in mythology. It's so integrated into mythology as well. So yeah, this is kind of my thought process about it. Where like, you know, if the government classifies deep underground military bases, I'm not going to be a bit surprised, because like, well, you know, we knew they had technology we didn't know about, so yeah, sure, you know. Um, but at the same time, like, it's kind of like a lot of people seem to really enjoy being in this continuous psychotic break from reality. It's just they just can't handle reality, so they want to live in a fantasy world that really has nothing to do with them. You know what I mean? And you know, to me, I feel like you almost need to graduate into entertaining these things, because like I can astral project and I can go see things. Maybe it's not always 100% accurate, but then because I can do that, and because my work is complicated enough to include, you know, everything that might be going on in the macrocosm, um, it's like, okay, then I can, that sort of legitimizes, me having interest in these things, because to me it does matter. But there's people that like they get out the tarot cards, they play with their crystals, you know. I think the New Age movement has a lot more quality stuff going on than people tend to give it credit for. But there, of course, there's a lot of just woo woo nonsense of people just wanting to believe stuff. And I think the real sin here is like, okay, if I get out the tarot cards and I want an answer, and I, you know, draw cards, or I get someone else to draw cards, it almost doesn't matter what the actual attunement of that person is. Something's going to come through, because spirits always want to talk. And I think it's very easy to get addicted to that, because it's like, oh, something's talking to me. There's something other than this materialist reality. So then it almost becomes this knee-jerk reaction, or at that point, a knee-jerk reaction to realizing, oh, the materialist thing is like not entirely accurate or something. And then of course you've got Rosicrucian saying that it's all like just some weird deep psychology thing. And then it's like, what's the point of even being into magic at that point? Like, come on. But yeah, I think that's the other thing that I hate on Facebook as well. And Gnosis isn't as bad with this, honestly. It's about as bad as it's about as bad as people serious enough to get on Facebook and talk about these things in groups would ever get, I suppose. But I have seen in these sorts of communities like a little bit the kind of mentality of like the mentality of like sitting in the garage smoking a doobie, talking about speculating about what might be true, or how things might work, or how it could be. And that's just not productive. You know what I mean? Like, my big beef, and I say this, I've said this a bunch of times to different people. I should probably make a post about it, make some videos about it, every once in a while, because I think it's one of the best points. Okay, I have a lot of good points. I think that I'm very confident can help others, but I think this point is something, and this point is something that I think a lot of people like that could use, is that it doesn't really matter if you're wrong about a lot of things. You can just stick with that belief experimentally, but really hold on to it, because I think the secret sauce here is intuition and trusting your intuition, but also trusting your intuition in an experimental way, because there's always some facet you didn't know about. But you can't just go through life not being sure of what you think, or being like, oh, maybe something's true, let me wait until I've seen overwhelming evidence that it is true before. That doesn't work, you know what I mean? Because I attached myself to Hinduism. I really got swept off my feet by Hinduism, and I eventually kind of found out that, like, okay, it's Hinduism's great, but feels a little bit like mind control-y. It feels a little bit like basically a giant cult. Maybe it's good some of it fell by the wayside, honestly. Also, it seems very Syrian. It's very stay in your lane, and right at the beginning of my occult journey, I was fighting Syrians. So, I mean, was I just in the religion of the enemy, basically, almost? Perhaps on a higher plane, I was in them to attack them. Who knows? Who knows? Not to mention the atypical Anunnaki just look like white Syrians, and I've found the connection. Yeah, blue Syrians and white Syrians are related. Okay, maybe the white Syrians are like the evil Syrians. I don't think so. I think it's almost like different castes or something. Total alien lore. He said, she said, practically. But anyways, yeah, like when I attached myself to Hinduism, I planted a seed and certain fruits came up, and I observed those fruits and I said, no, this isn't right either. When I was in Christianity, I could see the fruits of that seed, and they weren't good. They weren't good. It wasn't simply that, oh, people don't get what Christianity is really about, or, certainly it's taken a more materialistic turn. Sign of the times of, 50 years ago that's eroding away with Gen Y and Gen Z and Generation Alpha will hopefully kill it. But yeah, there is negativity in it. There is a lot of negative parts, and it's not just one person viewed it a bad way, or there's some kind of poison in it. No, I tapped very deeply into it. I prayed the prayer where, like, you asked the Lord for wisdom. That was like this. You could even say that was the start of my occult journey at, like, what, 15, 16? And funny thing is, I came to a lot of the same conclusions as Joseph Smith without really even knowing about him. I'd only heard of Mormons. I didn't know anything about Freemasonry. except that my uncle was one, but it's not like they told me a bunch of stuff about it. I pieced together like hints later a little bit, but or just I think the way that they live their lives is a little bit telling as well. Well, of course, but anyways, but yeah, I got to that point in Hinduism too, where the fruit was kind of like, I could inspect that, and I'm like, maybe this isn't really for me. I mean, Hinduism's been left in the past for a reason. Even Indians leave Hinduism in the past. Okay, sure, they're going back to it, but like, it's not in such a comprehensive way, and I think Vedic culture isn't coming back as much as some people may think that some of these things should, such as my ex, actually. So, yeah. Anyways, so those are two big examples of how, following a belief to its natural conclusion. I did something similar with the Inner Christos thing, but I really felt with Inner Christos that it was creating in me a lot of illusion. So Inner Christos teachings I kind of ruled them out. Now I think the whole thing is a CIA psyops, but I think it tells a lot of like the truth. But it of course, it's. I think, yeah. This is my spirits actually told me this while I was doing a voice message, or a voice recording, like for one of my videos. They told me authors of confusion. They said making the complex stuff simple and the simple stuff complex. So like switching it around. Which is really effective, because if I say, if I point at Inner Christos and say, that's not that complex, or if I point at another thing and say, what, it's not that simple, it's really complex, then it's like, okay, so are they being too complicated or not complicated enough? So this my spirits have been showing me lately this authors of confusion, this very particular tactic where, they, some things in an ideology are simple, some things are complex based on the, just the focus for one thing, and yeah. So I think maybe just thinking through it now, maybe the temptation there, the trap, is for you to say, that's too simple, or that's too complex, when in reality you should just say, nope, that's wrong. It's not how it works. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very preoccupied in trying to, not preoccupied. I put a lot of mental effort into figuring out how to tear apart spooks, or people that are trying to push these sorts of things on you. I haven't had anyone Inner Christos do that, except one YouTuber, but I was in his comments, so whatever. But I'm trying to get more. I would like to be effective in tearing. Like, if someone's attacking me from their worldview, I like to be prepared myself to tear apart their worldview. I feel like I'm pretty good at it. Certainly, I cyberbully Rosicrucians quite effectively. But Rosicrucianism's pretty indefensible. I mean, are we magicians or not? Like, don't make it some Jungian, bullshit. Jung is just like a smokescreen for magic. Like, don't make it some kind of bullshit where like, it's deep psychology. We're doing this to like, if they're even telling the truth about that. Like, that's another thing. I think some of these people are, but or perhaps they're really attached to it as code, so that the magic can happen sort of subtly under the code, but without code, it's like just chaotic somehow. I don't know. I mean, I think I didn't know much about Austin Osman's Spare, like, before you told me about him, but looking into chaos magic a little bit, I've learned more now. Yeah, I mean, chaos magic, even beyond him, has really proved that yeah, you can use art as magic. Art is magic. You can do this. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just venting about Rosicrucians at this point. I don't get how you can be so dumb. Like, what? Some of these people that would like criticize me, and then they're like, oh, join the Brotherhood of Eternal Light. One of these fucking retarded internet mystery schools. Like, Okay. You know. Okay. Cool. There's one though that I do have that just has the that I'm not interested in them as a brotherhood, but they have a good library on their website, so that's cool. But yeah, all these internet mystery schools. I hope it helps somebody. Maybe I'm just so unimaginably advanced that this is simple to me. I'd like to think that, but I think I'm more correct that it's just a bunch of bullshit. uh, I I I wrestle with this because yeah. Oh, maybe I'm just so advanced that I think I'm advanced in seeing that it's bullshit. I think that's all that's it. You know. Um, but also I'm not looking for something to like boost my ego and be like, oh, I'm part of the brotherhood of eternal light, and you know I'm like not telling my family members I'm part of it, and I'm like, ha ha ha, if only they knew I'm like Spider-Man or something, like keeping my real self hidden from my family, but they don't know I'm one of the white brothers in the brotherhood of eternal light. I can only imagine what these people are, what their thought process is there, it's it's really funny to me.